Hello, how you guys doing? James here. I hope you're doing well. Um, I want to show you a little history month, and these are since it's coming on African American month, Black History Month. This is going to tell you some real truth. There's going to be some black people on here that's going to tell you the truth about the real American history that they don't want to tell you in school, and for those who choose to respond. But here's this lady that breaks it down.
The development of black ghettos in the U.S. cannot be traced to a single event, but rather to a combination of policies, practices, and historical circumstances that systematically marginalize black people. Here are some key factors that contributed to the creation of black ghettos in America. Factor number 1, slavery and its legacy. Slavery, which existed in the United States for over 2 centuries, played a foundational role in shaping racial inequality. African people were forcibly brought to the U.S. and treated as property, which laid the groundwork for systemic racism. After slavery was abolished in 1865, former enslaved black people were left with few economic resources, little education, and no land. Factor number 2, the role of slave codes and post-slavery segregation. Slave codes were laws that defined the status of enslaved people and limited their rights. These laws criminalized resistance to slavery, banned literacy and education for enslaved people, and restricted movement. After the emancipation, these codes evolved into the Black Codes. From 1865 to 1866, after the Civil War, Southern states passed Black Codes and sought to control the newly freed African American population. These laws restricted black people's mobility, labor, and rights to own property. Black people were often forced into labor contracts under exploitative conditions that closely resembled slavery, and they were often denied equal legal protection. Here are some examples of the Black Codes. Labor contracts. Black people were required to sign annual labor contracts with white landowners and employers. If they left their employment before the contract expired, they could be arrested or fined. Vagrancy laws. These laws made it illegal for African Americans to be unemployed or homeless. If a black person was found without a job, they could be arrested and forced into labor through convict leasing. Apprenticeship laws. Black children could be apprenticed to white employers or families, often without the consent of their parents, leading to forced labor and a continuation of a system akin to what? Slavery. Restrictions on property ownership. Many black codes prohibited African Americans from owning or leasing land in certain areas, preventing them from becoming economically independent. Curfews. In some states, black people were required to be off the streets by a certain hour, effectively limiting their freedom of movement. Public accommodation laws. Black people were often segregated from whites in public spaces like schools, restaurants, and transportation. Factor number 3, the New Deal in the 1930s. During the New Deal era, the federal government implemented various programs to help people suffering from the Great Depression. However, these programs often discriminated against black people. For example, the Federal Housing Administration, created in 1934 to insure mortgages, refused to insure loans for black families or those buying homes in predominantly black neighborhoods. This worsened housing segregation as black Americans were denied the opportunity to buy homes in more affluent white neighborhoods, reinforcing the development of ghettos. The government's public housing initiatives, such as the Public Works Administration and the Housing Act of 1949, created subsidized housing for low-income families. However, these programs often segregated black people into distinct, overcrowded public housing projects. Factor number 4, Jim Crow laws. Following the Civil War and the Reconstruction period, the South implemented the Jim Crow laws that legalized racial segregation and disenfranchisement of black people, perpetuating the economic and social marginalization of black communities. These laws forced black people into segregated, overcrowded, and underfunded spaces. Everything was separate, but not equal. Our schools had fewer resources, restaurants, bathrooms, water fountains, movie theaters. They literally made sure that they got the best of everything, down to the size and cleanliness of water fountains, to make sure at every turn that we got the worst version of everything. And then lied to the world talking about how we were separate but equal. They lied then and they're lying now. Factor number 5, the Great Migration. From 1916 to 1970, in the early 20th century, millions of black Americans moved from the rural South to urban centers in the North and West, places like Chicago, New York, and Detroit, seeking better job opportunities and escaping the violent racial oppression of the South. However, they were often confined to the poorest and most overcrowded parts of the city, where housing was cheap and conditions were deplorable. This led to the creation of predominantly black neighborhoods, often referred to as ghettos. Factor number 6, redlining. Through the 1930s to the 1960s and beyond, the Federal Home Loan Bank Board, through its Homeowners Loan Corporation, drew maps to guide bank investments. These maps ranked neighborhoods based on their desirability for investment, and predominantly black neighborhoods were rated as hazardous or high risk, colored in red on the maps. This practice became known as redlining. As a result, black people were systematically denied access to mortgages, loans, and housing in better neighborhoods, which kept them confined to poorer areas. Factor number 7, white flight. After World War II, as federal policies like the GI Bill subsidized home ownership for white Americans, many white families moved to suburban areas, leaving urban areas increasingly populated by black and other minority communities. This process was known as white flight, accompanied by the disinvestment in cities and a further concentration of poverty in urban black neighborhoods. Also, there were restrictive covenants. Real estate developers and homeowner associations in the cities across the country used restrictive covenants, written agreements that prohibited the sale of property to black people. This practice was widespread in the early 20th century. Factor number 8, black Americans, even after the Civil Rights Movement, faced systemic discrimination in employment, limiting their access to well-paying jobs and economic mobility. Employers would often hire black workers only for low-wage, low-skill jobs, perpetuating cycles of poverty. Prime example, in the 1970s and 80s, as industrial jobs left cities in post-Vietnam War period, many predominantly black neighborhoods faced severe economic decline. Factories closed, and the service economy did not create sufficient opportunities for working-class black families. This economic shift led to higher unemployment, a decline in property values, and an increase in poverty rates within black communities, exacerbating ghetto conditions. Factor number 9, welfare programs were stigmatized, and particularly in post-1960s era, often seen as creating a dependency culture. Even though white Americans received more welfare benefits overall, and still do to this day. Factor number 10, police brutality. In the 20th century, black communities often faced heightened surveillance and policing. Law enforcement practices targeted black neighborhoods with more aggressive policing, including practices like stop and frisk, police brutality, and harassment. This increased violence and instability within black ghettos, further entrenching their status as marginalized areas. Factor 11, the crack cocaine epidemic and the war on drugs in the 1980s. The U.S. saw a rise in availability of crack cocaine, particularly in black urban neighborhoods, because they were flooding our streets with the stuff. The epidemic was widely covered in the media, often in racially biased ways, portraying black communities as drug-infested and dangerous. In response, the federal government launched the War on Drugs, which disproportionately targeted black communities. Policing tactics such as stop and frisk, mandatory minimum sentencing laws, led to mass incarceration of black people, particularly young black men. The criminalization of drug use and the subsequent increase in incarceration rates further destabilized black communities, disintegrating families, and increasing the poverty and violence that were already prevalent in our neighborhoods. By the 1990s, the U.S. had the highest incarceration rate in the world, with black people disproportionately representing the prison population. The policies surrounding three strikes laws and mandatory minimum sentences, especially for drug-related offenses, disproportionately affected black men and contributed to the further destabilization of black communities. The explosion in incarceration rates has been described as part of a prison industrial complex where private prisons and the prison labor system exploit incarcerated individuals. Factor number 12, political disempowerment. Voter suppression. Although black Americans gained the right to vote with the 15th Amendment in 1870, the Voting Rights Act of 1965, systemic voter suppression, literacy tests, poll taxes, gerrymandering, and voter ID laws continue to disenfranchise many black people. This lack of political power further limits the ability of black communities to advocate for change or access resources to improve their living conditions. In conclusion, these historic examples spanning from slavery and the black codes to the war on drugs and mass incarceration demonstrate how systemic racism has shaped and maintained the ghettos that black communities are often regulated to in the U.S. The racial segregation, housing discrimination, and criminalization of black people created a vicious cycle that kept black people isolated in poor urban neighborhoods, often marked by poverty, violence, and inadequate resources. These ghettos are not the result of any inherent failures of the communities themselves, but rather the product of centuries of intentional systemic oppression and discrimination. I love you, black man. I love you, black woman. Knowledge is power.
Oh, there's more truth coming up. There's more truth. More truth is coming up.
Here's a story that they don't want me to tell because history books want you to think something totally different. When you read about the Night Riders of the Klan, they think everybody was scared of them. They think that black folks was terrorized and we were run and hide and scream. I'll tell you a little story that you probably never heard of. In 1960, there was a group of black men in Bogalusa, Louisiana. They were military veterans that came home and they went toe-to-toe with the Klan. Never ran. When they protested, they got in their face, went back and forth, they protect the community. These men were called Deacons of Defense of Justice. These men, the Klan, was scared of these black men. Literally, they feared them. They patrolled their neighborhoods, the black communities, because the police wouldn't do it. These men were so powerful that they used their military skills to protect their black community. The Deacons of Defense and Justice was so powerful that when Martin Luther King used to have protest marches, a lot of the police department wouldn't protect them or provide them security. The Deacons of Defense stepped in and provided security. People, you're not going to hear about this because society wants you to think we feared and we were scared and cowards. That's not true. Look them up. Deacons of Defense of Justice, Bogalusa, Louisiana. They were so powerful that they started doing, they had chapters in Mississippi and Alabama, but they started here in Louisiana. And people, these black men didn't run from the Klan. There's pictures of them in their face going toe-to-toe. And a lot of Klan was scared of these black men because they were military trained. They know how to use weapons, they know how to do everything. And this is a great part about this history fact. The Deacons of Defense used to get all their weapons from the Port of New Orleans. And I had an opportunity many years ago to sit down and talk to these men. We talked about football players and basketball players, Jim Brown and all this kind of stuff. People, these are really trying to erase this history. They don't want the black kids to know that there were black men who wasn't afraid of the Night Riders, of the Klan. But they want us to think that we were cowards and feared these men. And it's not true. Research it yourself. Do your own history. And you're going to learn about them. We had black men that went toe to toe with the Klan. History book will never tell you that. Do your own research. I'm going to say the name one more time. Deacons of Defense and Justice. When you read it, you're going to have the biggest smile on your face because you're going to be so proud. Check them out.
I want y'all to know and understand, and when I say y'all, I mean, I want y'all to know and understand that they are not demanding that slavery be removed from the history books because they are so ashamed of slavery per se. Absolutely not. They're actually quite proud. If they could do the shit all over again, trust me, they would. No, that's not what it is. What they don't want you to know is the other shit that was going on with them imprisoning human beings and holding them captive, holding them hostage. They don't want you to know that they were actually eating motherfuckers. They don't want you to know that. They don't want you to know that the Nat Turner Rebellion did not end at the point of him being murdered. They don't want you to know that. They don't want you to know that they did not just bury his body in a mass grave, or they didn't burn him, or that's not what they're trying to hide. They're trying to hide the fact that they motherfucking ate him. Yeah, that's what they're trying to hide. They don't want people to know that. They don't want everybody to be hip to bucking farms. They don't want everybody to be hip to that. They don't want everybody to be hip to where the term motherfucker actually came from. They don't want to be hip to that. They don't want children or us to know that they would take the men, the head of the fucking family, from what family they were allowed to have. They would take the men and they would rape the men in front of the wife and the kids, to dismantle and break him down so the wife would know can't nobody stop shit from happening to you. They don't want people to really know that. Yeah, they don't want people to really know that shit at all. They don't want everybody to know how they was taking babies and feeding them to motherfucking alligators. They don't want people to know what the term picnic actually means. That national anthem that you stand up and you so proud of with your hand over your heart, they don't want you to know that shit was not motherfucking for you, so sit your ass down. They don't want you to know that. You know how Christianity was presented to us? They don't want you to know that it was against the law and punishable by death for one of the pastors on the plantation to preach about Moses and the people being free from the Pharaoh. They don't want you to know that. They don't want you to know that it was punishable by death for a pastor to actually advise the description of Jesus in the Bible, of the people in the Bible. They don't want you to know that. Because, some slaves could actually read and write without the knowledge of their masters, and some masters knew that their slaves could read and write, which is why they would tell them what they can and cannot advise at their little Sunday services. Yeah, they don't want you to know about breeding farms. They don't want you to know about that shit. It ain't about just picking cotton. Bitch, it's about being inhumane. You understand? Like when they talk about Thomas Jefferson, fuck the fact. Fuck the other shit. Fuck the presidents and shit. Let's talk about Sally Hemings. Let's talk about how fucked up that was. Let's talk about how that was the little sister of his deceased wife, and he felt like she looked so much like the sister that by the age of 14 she was already pregnant with his child and had sex by his nasty ass, by that predatory motherfucker. Let's talk about that. Let's talk about how George Washington would snatch the teeth from his slaves and make dentures for himself. Let's talk about that. Let's talk about how on the judge, who was one of his slaves was one of the ones who was never captured by him again. Because of how inhumane his ass was. Let's talk about that. Let's talk about that shit. It ain't just about the cotton gin. It ain't just about the fucking ivory trading. It ain't about none of that. It ain't just about that. It's about the other shit that was going on within slavery. It's what they don't want you to know about. And they also would hate for their great-grandchildren to open up a book and see them chunking rocks and eggs and apples and shit at kindergarten just simply trying to go into the school. They don't want them to know about that. Which is one reason why the actual Department of Education had to be founded. We don't want to talk about that. It ain't just about picking no cotton and no tobacco. Bitch, they don't want you to know that they were the motherfucking savages. They don't want you to know that. I want y'all to know and understand, and when I say y'all, I mean, I want y'all.
American history.
Hey family, so I had a white woman reach out to me on my YouTube channel because she had seen my last video I did talking about how white women can be an ally to fight against racism, prejudice, and bigotry. And so she said, can you please do a teaching on the relationship that white women and black women have had in America since slavery and on up. And I thought that was a great question. Tonight I'm going to give you a quick Cliff Note version of it, and then tomorrow I'm going to upload 2 in-depth videos. Something that sticks out in my mind that really defines to me how white women and black women are different. There's a picture of when Ruby Bridges, I don't know if you remember her, she was a little girl back, I think it was in the 50s. The school, she was the first black girl to integrate the school, one of the schools. And out front, of course, there were white men yelling and screaming, nigga, nigga, and the bus that she was on, pushing the bus. And then next to those white men were white women yelling the same thing to a child. I feel safe speaking on behalf of every black woman in America. We would never have done that if it was a busload of white children. One thing about us black women, we know the value of a child's life. I'm not saying you white women don't. But what kind of hatred is in you? And when I say you, I'm not talking about you yourself. What kind of hatred was in those white women during slavery and during Jim Crow era and during Reconstruction and during civil rights that would make them yell and call a little girl a nigger and to go back to her house, go back to Africa, go back. The hatred. Pull up pictures online. Pull up some pictures and see in those protests against when they were trying to integrate schools. Look at the pictures. It's not just white men out there, it's white women too, yelling and chanting, nigga, nigga. So no, the relationship between white women and black women in America has been shady at best. The fact that you would never even, you know what, you've heard this all the time. I've heard this. Someone has took this white woman used to tell her, this Asian lady used to tell her children all the time, if you ever get lost somewhere, find a black woman. Because we are Mother Earth. It's just in our nature. We're not going to hurt no child. We will kill for a child. We will hurt someone if they hurt a child. It's not in our nature. So if the tables was turned and that bus was full of little white kids, you would never ever found any black women pushing no bus with no white children on. I don't care what color the kids were. Why? Because we don't have that kind of soul in us. You know the kind of treacherous person in spirit you must have in your bloodline to enslave people, to take them from one continent to another and enslave them like white people have done here in America. Do you really think that just dies out when great-great-great-granddaddy Massa died? No. That kind of hatred is a curse, and it's passed down in generations. It's spiritual, honey. And unless you come against it and renounce it and rebuke it, that spirit still can lay dormant in you, white women. I'm telling you what I know. During slavery, your breast was so precious. Your little sweet, frail white breast. Till you had the slave woman who was already nursing her babies. We nursed your babies. Did you know that? It's called wet nursing. We nursed your babies. Took care of your children. While you sit out there on the porch, you drinking mint juleps. Your white fragile tears, your white fragile emotions. You couldn't handle breastfeeding your white baby. So let the big black slave woman do it. And that same child of yours that she breastfed ended up being her master as years went on. This is the reality. Now again, all white people are not a monolith. And I know that none of you today enslaved anyone. And I'm getting real sick and tired of the ignorant hate mail that I'm getting from white men particularly. A hit dog will holler. And white women, sometimes I feel sorry for y'all. Because the hatred and vitriol just from the comment sections on my YouTube that I get from white men, I can't imagine what them white men are saying and doing to y'all in your house. Y'all better get some sister strength. Y'all better put on your imaginary sister cape and tell that white man to kick rocks. Because if he has that kind of hate in his heart towards black people, he could never love you and treat you right. Because that kind of hate comes from Satan himself. So, that's just a brief history on how white women, yes, and they're not all. Listen, of course, there were abolitionists that helped. White women helped. There have been allies. They were all up through civil rights, all up through time. No one has always not done something. But at the end of the day, the female white fragility and white tears and white privilege, it has created a divide between us. It really has. So, I won't go into depth later, but I just wanted to address that, and I want to thank the young lady, the white lady who sent that to me.
Wow. Oh, it gets better than that. You think that's something? Watch this.
Hey y'all, listen, have y'all seen the video of the young man who's the truck driver who had a conversation with an older white man at a restaurant, who the older white man basically confessed that when he was a firefighter back in the 60s and 70s, how him and his firefighter buddies used to let black people burn and listen to their screams and allow them to burn to death because of the 60s and 70s, because they were black. Okay, I tagged him at the bottom. Go to his page, find the video, and take a listen. But listen, let me put this trigger warning out here. Everybody can't listen to this. So know your mindset and know your trigger level, okay, before you go listen to it. But anyway, once I listened to his video, it just brought me back to just a couple days ago. And I'm a true believer in things happen in threes. I don't know where I get it from, but I'm a true believer. Things happen in threes. So a few days ago, there were two patients in the waiting room. They were the last two patients of the day. One was a middle-aged white woman. The other was an older white woman. I would say she was probably in her 70s or 80s, right? And there was me. Me and the middle-aged white woman were having a conversation because she follows me on TikTok. I follow her. And we were talking about the whole washcloth thing. Age-old topic, right? So as me and her are talking, the middle-aged white woman goes, I don't get it. She said, I honestly think it's the South versus the North thing. She said, because me growing up in the South, in the Carolina, she said, you can't come in my house without a washcloth. Now, you gonna use a washcloth to wash your butt. She says, I really think it's Northern white people who don't do it. So we just giggling amongst ourselves and we're talking. The older white lady looks at the younger white lady and looks at her kind of strange. And she goes, I'm sorry. She says, I'm confused. You use a washcloth? You bathe every day? So the white woman looks at her and goes, yes, ma'am, I bathe every day, sometimes 3 times a day. And yes, I grew up using a wash rag. The older white woman looks at the younger white woman and then looks at me. She goes, I can understand why she bathes every day, but I'm confused why you do. She says, honey, you're white. Your skin is pure. White skin is pure. We don't have to bathe every day because our skin is pure. Black people have to bathe daily because they don't know when they're dirty, and their skin is not pure as our skin. Wait, what? So the younger white woman looks at the older white woman and then looks at me, and she looks and says to the older white woman, she said, are you serious right now? She goes, I'm very serious. She said, when I was growing up, back in the 40s, I was always told by my mama and my grandmama and my aunts and everybody in my family, white skin is pure. Black skin is not pure. If your skin is darker than my skin, you need to bathe every day because you have impurities in your skin. Black people don't know when they're dirty, so they have to bathe every day so they can be accepted by society. Now it's 2024, and this is her mindset. This is what she, and again, this is her mindset, and this is how she raised her children. Now her children would be my age, 50, because I'm 54. She's close to my mama age. You understand? So if she raised her children like this, her children are raising their children like this. You get where I'm going? Okay. Let me tell you something. I've talked to a lot of people because of my profession. And I kid you not when I say this, and I do not say this to be ugly. It is more likely than it's not to find people with this mindset. It's more likely than not to find people with this mindset. To find people with the mindset of that 89-year-old man who dressed in the 60s and the 70s. I was born in 1970. That was only 54 years ago. You understand? It's more likely than not to find people with that mindset. Yeah. Let that sit in your head and marinate for about 10 minutes, and then we can come back and talk about it. All right, bye. Hey, y'all, listen, have y'all...
Oh. Check this one out.
For the first time, I'm lost words. For the first time. But I'm going to say my little special introduction before I show you these documents. Get in here. Get in here. Get in here. These people's right here have some documents that's very important. Let's dig right in. But before I start, if you'd like to donate for this hard work, please donate $1. Let's go to the front of the page called Subject. Right? Take a screenshot. I'm gonna move out the way. Take the screenshot, and if you look down here, right here, let's get closer to the page. Let's see what it says. This is about to blow your mind. But TikTok, it's all scripted. It's all scripted, TikTok. Now, follow my finger. Follow my finger, right? Follow my descendants of the biblical Israelites, right? The descendants of the biblical Israelites, right? And right here, the United States is the true what? Can you read it? call themselves the Jays, how they want to ruin America? Yes, this talks about them, how they want to ruin us and take our heritage. Yeah. So donate $1. Donate $1. Go right here. Appreciate y'all. Love y'all. For the first time, I'm lost words.
Powerful message. Powerful message. But this is the kind of black history that we don't hear about.
First time. But I'm gonna say my little special.
There's something else in the black history you probably didn't know. Watch this.
Deputy U.S. Marshal Reeves was a legendary figure in the American West. Born into slavery in 1838, he escaped to freedom and became the first black deputy U.S. Marshal west of the Mississippi. Imagine a man, once a slave, chasing down outlaws and bringing justice to the wild frontier. He was known for his incredible marksmanship and fearless nature. Reeves arrested thousands of criminals, often working alone in dangerous territories. His reputation was so fierce that even the most notorious criminals trembled at the mention of his name. With a unique style, he would often disguise himself to catch his targets off guard. In a time of deep racial division, Reeves broke barriers and proved that courage knows no color. His life was filled with daring adventures, including gunfights and narrow escapes. Stories of his exploits became legendary, inspiring countless tales of heroism. Reeves's remarkable life has led some historians to speculate that he may have inspired the fictional character of the Lone Ranger. Many people have never heard of Bass Reeves. It's time to shine a light on this remarkable man. His legacy continues to inspire those who seek justice and equality. The Wild West was never the same after Bass Reeves rode into town. Like, follow, and share for more black history in America. Deputy U.S.
There's a lot of people that don't know that black people part of history because they make you think that
Marshal Reeves was a legendary figure in the American West. Born into slavery in
make you think that's it. But black people did some amazing things, man. And I'm blown away. Now I'm going to show you what's in present day, how the black people are viewed today. Watch this. Not the past, but the present.
Next tonight, 3 managers at a Lowe's store in Virginia are out of a job tonight, fired after calling back one of their drivers out on a delivery. The customer the driver was on the way to see allegedly wanted only a white person to make the delivery. Here's ABC's Mars Galvocampo.
Home improvement retailer Lowe's has apologized after a veteran employee was pulled from a delivery job because he's black.
And I got a phone call on the phone telling me to bring the delivery back, saying that I couldn't do the delivery.
Danville, Virginia driver Marcus Bradley saying he was told the customer didn't want a black man in the house. Shockingly, the store honored the request.
I mean, I thought that Lowe's would take up for me.
So who did take up for him? His fellow driver of 11 years, refusing to complete the delivery with a new white partner.
To me, it just ain't right for a business that we work in to go on with the woman's wishes.
In a statement, Lowe's says, "We have zero tolerance for behavior of that kind. We have apologized." But one person who is not sorry, the homeowner, as she told ABC affiliate station WSET.
Do you feel bad about the delivery driver?
No, I don't feel bad about nothing. Of course not.
In their statement, Lowe's also says that an executive traveled to Virginia to personally apologize to Bradley. David?
She was real comfortable calling Lowe's and saying, "Hey, I don't want no black people in my home." And Lowe's was real comfortable saying, "Yes, we'll go ahead and comply with your wishes." Like, what the fuck? And then
So we have present day, same old thing, huh? And you think that's something in the present day. Now I'm going to show you what's happening in the present day with black people today that you heard in the past. Watch this. This was property.
If people knew what kind of mess was going on just to get a piece of chicken, they would stop eating. Whatever you do, run from a poultry house. Do not do it. You'll lose your wife. You'll lose your health. You'll lose everything that you have. It's not worth it. Run from a chicken house. Run. I'm Carlton Sanders, and I'm from Forest, Mississippi. And I was a chicken grower for some 28 years for Cook Foods, and I lost everything I had due to the upgrades and a bunch of guys that didn't like black folks. That's the bottom line. I mean, if people knew how much trouble we were having trying to grow these chickens, they would stop eating chicken. I mean, it's just that simple. Because nobody wants to be like I am now. Done lost everything and pitiful looking and talking. And people don't want to do that. But now Tyson and Cook, ooh, it's just like you in hell with those guys. Yeah, I used to cry and couldn't stand to come by here because I did everything from scratch. And I've been here for 30-some years. Had a beautiful garden. You know, everything was just good and perfect. So, you know, therefore, you know, it just made a mess out of things. They have to get out and move somewhere else and relocate. You know how it is. It's just hard all over. This was my #1 house right here on the Carlton Sanders farm. And I did this for 28 years right here at this farm right here. Year, and I would have had everything paid for from $750,000 down to $50,000. They found out somehow that I was about to get everything paid for, and they wanted me to do all upgrades, so they would put me back in debt some $500,000, and the bank wouldn't do it. First, the bank was on my side, so we are sick of these chicken farms and the way they operate. And then all of a sudden, when they got ready to cut me off and kill me, then the bank pulled in with them. My son got the money to buy the place, and once he got the money, they wouldn't let him have it. The man told me, said, well, he told my son first, he said, they trying to put your dad out of there. They sold for $110,000. That's what this guy got it for. I offered him $150,000. It was a racial thing, a black versus white, and if I'd have been a white guy, I never would have went through this. And they didn't have no mercy on me, and I don't wish this on nobody. And a farmer shouldn't have to go through this, you know, when he's feeding them herb. He shouldn't have to go through this. Nobody should have to go through what I done gone through. So, like I said, I thank God I'm still living and things as well it is. And, you know, that's just how it is. I'm thankful and blessed. Chicken is the way of life in Mississippi. Now, then when you gonna find your black guy that on the truck and catching the chicken? It's pretty dangerous because right now, with this corona thing out, these people get sick and die or get sick. They just roll another black guy in this place and tell him to keep on getting up. It's terrible. If people knew what kind of mess was going on just to get a piece of chicken, they would stop eating. Cory Booker, Elizabeth Warren, Senator Doug Jones, they wanted to help. So we're trying to get a bill passed as to how we can handle these problems and help other growers not to grow through what I've gone through. You know, I look at it like Martin Luther King and Lewis. Those guys can do it, I can too. I want to be heard, and I want to be heard from. You know, we were supposed to meet Donald Trump, but he chickened out. He wouldn't do it. He said he didn't think the farmer was having that much trouble. He said because he didn't hear nothing about it. Yeah, just because he don't hear nothing about it, that don't mean it ain't happening. You know, it is tough. And so many people laughed at me, and then so many people cried, you know. But I did the best I could, what I had to do, and you know, tried to make it.
You think that's bad? What's happening present day from the past? Watch this.
Here's the sad reality. When black babies are born, people like us that look like me are born, we come out with a strike already against us because people don't like us without a cause. They don't like us just based off of our beautiful dark skin. These right here are just two of many babies who have been harmed by evilness. What burns me up is every one of these victims, every one of these babies that were harmed looked like me. Do y'all remember that character Annie Wilkes played by Kathy Bates in the movie Misery? You know, where Wilkes would put down elderly people and babies, and Annie almost got caught while she was head nurse of the maternity ward in Boulder, Colorado? Well, that right there is in real life Annie Wilkes. Her name is Erin Elizabeth Ann Strockman. She's up there in Virginia. And here's the thing, she's just now being arrested for stuff that she's been doing, as far as they know, since 2023. Yes, up there in the neonatal intensive care unit in a hospital where she worked as a nurse. This happened in Henrico Doctors Hospital up there in Chesterfield County, Virginia. Let me tell you why this is so important. Her charges are coming after 7 babies at this hospital, the NICU unit, were found with unexplained fractures in 2023 in the summertime. And then as most recently as November and December of last year. There were complaints that were coming in 2023, and the police closed all those cases. Then those cases are now being reopened. She was just arrested on Friday, and she got a slew of charges: felony abuse, malicious wounding, all these other things that are coming down the pipe for all these injuries that she did to infants, especially these 2 right here. Now, they are still combing through all types of videos in order to see what had happened to different babies. I wonder how many other babies were injured and the parents were arrested for something that happened to their child caused by this monster right here. How many people are sitting in jail or on probation or have lost their children because of what this monster did? And I feel the hospital is responsible also, because they put her on paid administrative leave for a whole year after the 2023 cases of the NICU abuse came to light. And then she was allowed to return in 2024.
That was done in the dark comes to the light, and sometimes you don't necessarily want to know what was done.
Dominique Hackey, the father of one of the Henrico Doctors NICU babies, found to have broken bones in 2023, concerned that it has taken so long for justice.
I remember her being in the room. She was friendly, she answered questions, but she didn't stay and talk like the other NICU nurses did. She wasn't family like the other NICU nurses were.
He's describing 26-year-old Erin Strockman, the nurse now in jail, charged with felony child neglect and felony malicious wounding, related to a different baby in 2024. Strockman was put on paid administrative leave by the hospital for a year after the 2023 cases of NICU abuse came to light, and then was allowed to return in late 2024. Hackey saying the hospital should be held accountable as well.
Because that shouldn't have happened. If they were suspicious of some person enough to let him go, they shouldn't have brought him back. So that's on them. Big deal. Simple.
HCA, the network that oversees Henrico Doctors Hospital, issuing this statement, saying in part it is shocked and saddened by this development in the investigation, and that the hospital is focused on continuing to care for its patients. Strockman was just fired from her job on Thursday, Henrico police arresting her that night. Henrico's Commonwealth's attorney Shannon Taylor says the investigation is not over and more charges could come as detectives continue to review NICU video footage.
We will continue to work on building cases if there is evidence present to build other cases to find if there's additional criminal culpability.
Families of some of the young victims from both 2023 and 2024 were present for Strockman's arraignment, seen leaving the courtroom in tears, some hugging each other for comfort.
Let's push this, share this. We want to get justice for these babies right here, for Dominique, the rest of the families that were affected by this, and all the other families that have had children in this hospital. Y'all need to come forward. Everybody needs to come forward. We want to get justice for these babies. Here's the sad reality. When black babies are born,
that woman I usually don't say this, but that won't deserve to be in some special kind of hell when she leaves this earth. That's just straight up evil. That's just straight up evil. But you remember the one video, how you see how some people are evil from generation after generation? The hatred is so deep against black people that there are people among us in this country. There's hatred among other people, but it's a whole different type of hatred. And that from the past to the present still remain. That's why I show you it started in the past, but it's still cases in the present. There are people walking among us with their hatred in the present. And that's why black people feel the way that they do. This is the reason why. The past, why don't you get over the past when how are you going to get over the past when the things of the past still coming in the present? The things of the past that you see in the past, the stories, is in modern, is in present. That's why black people asking for reparation and be left alone. But the evilness that some people have in this country towards black people is unimaginable. And that spirit is a spirit of racism is in the land. Black History Month proved it. But that kind of history, they're not going to tell you the whole truth. That's how deep it was. So I hope you share with people and anybody from outside the United States. Show them this. Show them this video. This is the real America they don't want you to know about. I mean, don't let the commercialized TV, because most people is a small percentage of people of all walks of life and all racial alike get along, but some people don't. This is what they don't want you to know about. And they in every position, and even when it comes to a value of life based on class and skin color, it still exists in America. There you have it. So when they tell you to get over the past, oh, that stuff is in the past. If the past is, why are we still seeing the present? Why are the individual and still getting away with stuff like this in the present? Because subconsciously the people who make the laws, some of the people make the laws, enforce the laws, and do this subconsciously when they see another person look like them, is us versus them. Black Americans are we know that. It's us versus them. And you really can't trust somebody sometimes because the first thing in your mind is they're going to see it like that. Facts. So I hope this video educates somebody. Share it, like, and subscribe. But this is America, history of America, that they don't want you to know about. Shout out to all the content creators. You guys be blessed. See you on the next video. And like and subscribe. Take care.